Hello and good morning, everyone. I love seeing some of these names in the attendee box. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first ever HR workshop. Dr. Higdon from OTC actually suggested this event, so we were excited to make it happen. I believe I've been trying to plan it for 2 years now, and then a little thing called COVID got in the way. And then Ocki came on from OTC and she was very willing to jump in and help me coordinate this. So thank you to her. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. And I'll get to our presenters. Our presenters today are Ocki Haas, Chief Human Resources Officer, Kelli Fleck, Employee Relations Director, which she will be joining us here in a little bit. She had to run to another meeting and she'll be back here in just a little bit. And Cara Griffin, HR Coordinator. Our first presentation is Best Practices in Recruiting and Hiring Professional Development with Cara Griffin, followed by Conflict Resolution and Handling Those Difficult Issues with Kelli Fleck. And then there will be a brief break followed by Principled Leadership with Ocki Haas. We will wrap it up with a networking opportunity. So we have some breakout rooms by sessions. When you registered, you said which session interested you the most. So we will put you in that breakout room and that will be available until 12:30. So there's no need to come back to this main room. Once you go in the breakout room, we'll just end it at 12:30 and the session will end. So without further ado, I will go ahead and hand it over to Cara.
Hey, good morning, everybody. That was a really fun introduction and kind of set a good tone for interacting and engaging with everyone. I do want to just say good morning, and if you have any questions or anything as we go, feel free to raise your hand. I know from those introductions, I regret not doing an instrument in high school so that I could join the MCCA band, and I really want to get to know Cheryl because everybody loves Cheryl. So those are two things I've got to do.
Thank you so much. I'm humbled by that. Thank you. And I sing, so the band, we can have a singer, the drum player, the clarinet with Linda, and someone else does something else. So I got you.
Okay, I love that. I'm sure you guys have heard of OTC. I just wanted, because I'm opening, I thought, hey, you know what? OTC, we're in Springfield, of course. We now have 6 locations. It just feels like we're getting bigger and growing all the time. We have approximately, last time I checked, I think last fall, around 12,000 students. And that's been higher. It's been lower, but that's kind of where we are right now. Enrollment really didn't influx a lot downwards during the pandemic, so we're very fortunate for that. We have about 590 full-time employees, right? I mean, talking to other HR people, it's kind of good to set that tone of, you know, how many employees do you guys have? And this is kind of where we're at. And we have about 2,000 total with full-time, part-time, all the adjuncts, right? Everybody loves adjuncts and the work studies. So that's kind of just a good picture of where we are as a college. Our mascot is Ozzy, and I found these great little like GIFs with Ozzy and all these funny words. So every couple slides, I put one in to keep you guys entertained. So the outline for today, there's always a lot to this, right? And every institution is different and has their own best practices. And so I tried just to put together the best ones that Ocki and I have worked on and just kind of what we're doing here at OTC, right? That's not by any means that we're the best or there's not room for improvement. I'll certainly talk about those. And in our breakout sessions, I look forward to hearing what you guys do and what you're working on and collaborating with you all. So recruiting techniques at OTC, I'm sure we all have seen the ads or we make ads or, you know, just keeping an idea of what jobs we need filled, what roles at the college. I know OTC has several even higher level executive leadership positions available in the last year. So filling all of those has certainly been, has had its ups and downs. But I think something that we start with here at OTC, and hopefully you guys have one or are thinking about one, but being efficient, right, is the number one benefit, is the number one thing you need to focus on when you're recruiting. I know OTC came from a very paper-based system, memos, internal mail, It was hard to pinpoint where an applicant was at, right, in our onboarding system. And fortunately, in 2018, we went out RFP and we implemented PageUp, which is an online applicant tracking system. And we do have, you know, we have mandatory training to kind of bring everybody up to speed on that. And so that's something that we handle in our office and that I manage for the college. Right now it's PageUp. I know our contract's up in a year, and just like with, you know, in the public sector, we all try to do our due diligence. We'll be doing another RFP. So in our breakout sessions, I'd love to hear what other systems you guys manage or use. But PageUp is what we're using right now. And it really just created that efficient workflow that we needed, right? To effectively recruit and hire people. And what we've done is we try to make it easy to access. And so when you arrive at your MyOTC, which I'm sure at every institution, you have some form of like a portal that you have for being an employee. At OTC, we call it MyOTC, and you can access your tax forms, your email, whatever you need. And so we've embedded, you know, a link there for hiring managers or anyone serving on a hiring committee to be able to access it. And so that's the first part of our efficiency. And something that we do, all of our job descriptions when we hire are uploaded into PageUp. So all positions, full-time and part-time and blanket adjuncts are uploaded into PageUp. And that includes internal, external postings and something we call a blind link. And it's kind of funny, PageUp is based out of Australia. And so we would probably call this like a closed job, meaning for part-time or adjunct, like it's sometimes a department chair knows who they want or they went to college with someone, and we just need a link to direct them to directly onboard them into a position. But in Australia, they call that blind. So a lot of times I'll get emails and like, hey, do you have my blind link? And then people are like, what are they talking about? What's a blind link? It just means it's closed to the public. It's an internal kind of only use link that we send to candidates to bring on directly into a job that they want. All of our offers go through PageUp, full-time, part-time, and adjunct. And we have a built-in executive leadership workflow. And when Kayla was saying Dr. Higdon wanted OTC to do some HR training, I had just been in this position not very long. So I'm glad I've had some time to accrue some more knowledge. And also it makes you a little nervous because anytime Dr. Higdon wants something, you make sure you do it. But speaking of the approvals, he's on every approval for a full-time employee. So every single job posting, every single full-time employee hiring requires his approval. So he's the kind of the end of the approval workflow. So in PageUp, we also do all hiring committees. Right now, something we can work on, we leave it up to the hiring manager to notify those people serving on the committee, but they have a way to digitally or virtually be on that hiring committee, review applicants, see if they meet, exceeds, or don't meet qualifications, and then they can rank them. And then some people still like doing paper questions, like still a rubric and, hey, we have everybody's notes, we're meeting together. And then we scan and upload all of those documents to the position in PageUp. So that way we always have the documentation that we need, either digitally or uploaded for hiring committees. And basically that just creates, you know, that efficiency, communication. Everyone can see where an applicant is at, and then, you know, make sure that everything's being done correctly with our OTC policies and procedures. And just kind of throwing it out there, feel free to unmute yourself. How many people sign off or approve a full-time job at your college? I'm just curious.
We do.
Do you say 2?
No, I said it's at St. Louis Community College. That's part of the process for us.
Yeah. And how many, like, do you know how many people like have to approve it? Like your dean, your director, finance, HR, your chancellor, like
everybody you just named.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's good. Absolutely. So we do have a representative. It's about 6 people for every full-time hire. Part-time, not as many. So one benefit, of course, is analyzing the data. And on PageUp, we are able to set, I have a couple examples of this, but we're able to set any type of stipulation to pull data. And so this right now is just the last 3 months. We've had 320 applications. We've had 49 offers accept. We've had 17 jobs added and approved. 21 added, you'll see 17 approved, so there's 4 pending there, right? And sometimes that takes cabinet approval and just a little time, but we're able to pull up all of this information that helps us just kind of see what's going on. And you'll see here this oldest job, 940 days. We have an adjunct campaign that we keep out there and open for people. Hey, are you interested in applying? Apply here. So that's why that's so high. And then we're able to look at other pieces of information like jobs added, who's in pending, by business unit, by department. We've had a lot for institutional advancement. We recently went to a student success model. So we've had 8 positions, filled in the last 3 months for that. Jobs by the campus. We've had 3 at Richwood Valley, 28 at Springfield. So it's just nice to be able to have the opportunity to run reports and look at things like this. One thing PageUp is looking into too is a diversity kind of application where we're able to help look for applicants that are more diverse or meeting criteria that we're wanting to see. And we have a new college director of diversity, equity, inclusion. So that's really exciting. So after you analyze your data, you want to prepare your employees. This is something that we're always working on. We're always trying to come up with better ways, better training opportunities. But I guess our 2 pools of people that we target in this is our hiring manager and then the hiring committee member. So our IT workflows here, I did want to mention that because every time an employee accepts a full-time offer in PageUp, our IT is notified and they automatically are added a PageUp account so that they can log in the next day as soon as that MyOTC ID is set up and can be a hiring committee member for any full-time position. So that is kind of a nice workflow. It saves us the data entry. And if you don't have that capability, I would definitely recommend that. And that way PageUp automatically recognizes them if they were to sign in and after 2 months of being here, someone was like, hey, do you want to be on the hiring committee for a new political science instructor? They'd be like, sure, I'd love to. So that's automatic. Something that we are working on is some new training videos. We have some right now. Of course, just for hiring managers and just for search committee members, because there are like 2 different pools of training when you're actually hiring versus just serving on a committee. And so we try to keep those relevant, especially now we're in year 3 with PageUp. Some of their applicant boards have changed, some things have tweaked, and so we're in the process of updating those and just staying up to date. Offer PageUp training every quarter. That's something we do for professional development. And then of course, I get chats and emails every day. If I was listening to other folks in here who are also HR coordinators, that I'm sure you get daily questions on processes. So it's always good to have quick how-to guides. We have a couple PDFs that we shoot out, that we put in Teams, and that we have accessible on our website. And then we're always looking for ways to improve. I mean, we're not perfect. So one thing we are thinking about resurrecting is at one point, every full-time employee who wanted to be on a hiring committee had to go through interview training, right? What you ask, what you don't ask, appropriate questions, and kind of skill up our staff, right, on the hiring processes and onboarding and what it takes. And for about 2 years, we haven't done that. And so we are working on resurrecting that and making sure that our employees are trained, because even though we've had hiring lulls, we've also still been still hiring, right? So we definitely want our staff to be equipped with the proper things to say in an interview, Zoom or in person. So when people log into their PageUp as a hiring manager, this is just kind of an easy screenshot I took of what that looks like. When they want to start a new job to post for, they create a requisition. And this is going to take them to the job description library of all OTC job descriptions so that they can start that process. Their jobs, they may have 3 open jobs that they're managing or hiring or recruiting for. It looks like they've already approved 3 of them. There's an applicant progress board where you're able to see all the applicants applying for that position, and you're able to move them and see a kind of a quick glance at their qualifications. And then a search committee review. So this being a hiring manager, they're probably on the manager of 3 jobs, so that's what's popping up there. But if they weren't a hiring manager, someone would log in and just see that, hey, I'm on 3 search committees. I need to look at these applicants. And then if there's an offer waiting for their approval, that means that they've changed the status of an applicant and they're wanting to approve that to go into the executive workflow to get approval to hire them. And that's where I was mentioning that six-person structure that starts and ends with me, so I can make sure everything in the offer is correct, like pay, starting date. You know, every college has caveats. I know if you started after April 1st here, you're not eligible for a COLA raise. We don't hire past December 2nd for the year. You know, we don't hire right before a holiday. So someone has to kind of regulate all of those little things. So we make sure all the offers are correct before they're seen by executive leadership. Knowing your applicant pools, this is something I feel like I am constantly learning about. It is something, you know, when you're hiring from such a wide variety of folks, right? From paramedicine to electrical distribution to sign language to just, hey, I need a student success specialist. I need an enrollment specialist. So one thing we are able to auto kind of post is a code in PageUp automatically when I source a job, which you can kind of see what it'll look like once it's approved. We have internal website, which is the jobs.otc.edu, and then the internal website and OTC website. When this is posted, they will automatically go to Indeed and Glassdoor. So that's really helpful for us because that saves us time. But we still manually post to outside agencies like our Chamber of Commerce, of course, MCCA, been using that job board. Sometimes we include specific agencies with a cost. I know we've ran a job with the Chronicles of Higher Education before. We have a Chief Financial Officer position. Of course, our Vice Chancellor, Marla Moody, retired, who was with us for a very long time. So very big shoes to fill. And so we kind of posted nationally for that position with a couple of institutions. So, and of course, we utilize local chapters and associations, field of study websites. If a hiring manager asks me to post the paramedicine, I'm like, hey, what journals are you part of? What groups are you part of? And I'll Google it and kind of find a way to advertise that job to them. And of course, a lot of those are free. Some of those do have costs. It's nothing you guys haven't worked with before. And in our breakout sessions, I'm curious to know if anyone does like a LinkedIn campaign or Facebook campaign, because I'll talk about social media a little bit, but we have not really paid for any type of campaign or advertising on that. So I'm curious to see if you guys have done that and how effective that's been. So we do send a job alert to all employees via email anytime a full-time job is posted, because a lot of times it's just word of mouth, right? That's something you may know someone or you may know a friend, and we want to hire good people. So that's something that we do. Just as a courtesy. And then creating social media posts. We haven't done any campaigns, but it's something that we're always building. I think our Facebook page, we started at about 260 likes, and now we're at like 400. So I mean, we're picking up a little steam on Facebook, mostly because a lot of people, well, when Dr. Higdon likes it and shares it, that doesn't hurt. So we're just always trying to build that. Internal. So internal postings, there are times that there may be a position, somebody's leaving, there's really only one person left qualified, and so we do an internal posting. This will auto-generate to our jobs.otc.edu, and the notifications, or it is eligible for part-time and adjunct employees, not just full-time. And we had this funny scenario that I'll share with you a couple years ago. I think I had just started, and I've been at OTC 7 years, but I've been in HR for 2, but before that I was in administrative services. So still work comp and insurance and things like that. And our faculty senate, we had an internal job posting for a dean, a department chair. And it was posted for 3 days. And one of the full-time instructors didn't know. They hadn't signed up to receive alerts, right, from jobs.otc.edu. It's not something that they check. And so they were like, hey, I feel like I missed out on this opportunity. Is it on me to go and check this website all the time? Or are you going to notify me? Because before, OTC had notified everybody, but it became, I don't want these emails. If I want a job, I'll sign up to get notifications, and just leave this on me. It's not, I don't want the added emails. And so we stopped sending email alerts. Then it became, hey, I'm missing out on opportunities because you didn't tell me about it. Also, faculty senate didn't feel like 3 days was long enough. And so kind of our compromise was, we will post it internally for 5 business days. And we do send job alerts right now, but it's always that teeter-totter. Like, I still get emails like, hey, can I unsubscribe from OTCEs? But our line of thinking and what Dr. Higdon said was, I would rather annoy someone with an email notification than anyone feel like they didn't have an opportunity to apply. So that's kind of the stance that we're taking right now. And this is kind of what they look like, hey, we just posted these 2 jobs. And in this section, knowing your applicant pool, another thing I'd love to discuss with everyone, I know from our experience, our application pools are low. They are down. Like safety and security officer, we never found anyone qualified. A year and a half ago, I posted this job and we had 35 applications. They interviewed 6 people. And a month ago, they had 12 people. Only 5 were they were like driving a security truck. They weren't post-certified. They had no other experience. Like, we've adjusted rates of pay and we're still posting, but overall across the board, our pools are low right now. We're just not seeing that number of applicants. And I think that has a little bit to do with unemployment and, you know, the pandemic and things like that. So I'm curious to know if anyone else has seen lower applications. Feel free to unmute yourself and jump in. Oh, I see we have some chats. Yeah, low application pools. And yeah, unemployment is, and even like driving around here, I saw Kelli had even told me we see like McDonald's and Arby's starting at $11, $12, $13 an hour. Our part-time shipping and receiving distribution clerk starts at like $10.50. Our full-time grounds or our full-time custodians start at $11.50. So we do have great benefits, and I know that's a factor, but we're just really struggling. Not like really struggling with every job, but several jobs are just a lot lower right now. So when it comes to onboarding, we are trying to keep everything just in that workflow and online. So we have a workflow for full-time and adjunct, part-time and work study, an automated background check link, and an online onboarding portal, which we are trying to make that a little more robust with a little bit more information about OTC. One thing that kind of came out of our new hire orientation was, you know, we hold that twice a year and people get great information, but a lot of times they need those little details and a little snapshot of the culture before that huge new employee orientation. So we're looking to make that a little more robust and put a little bit more in about OTC and time clock plus and kind of helping out our hiring managers. But we do have it, our forms, of course, PDF and fillable. And during COVID, I did virtual I-9s. So I would set up a Zoom with an applicant, mostly adjuncts, and I would watch them fill out their I-9 and then they would email me their 2 forms of ID. So I saw them sign it. We did it virtually. Nobody had to come in the office and we were able to complete everything we needed to. So our hiring managers create the offer in PageUp, but that always comes to HR for review, just for pay, make sure the FLSA status is correct. It goes through that approval, and then all candidates, of course, do the background check official, and then they'll get the official offer letter, and then they have access to the portal, and then we do the 2 forms of ID, and then I enter into colleague. So this is not something that happens overnight. And I know you guys probably struggle with this, but like I dread the 2 days before class starting, okay? Because I know I got great friends out there, but a department chair will be like, hey, I need James, my welding adjunct, to start tomorrow. He teaches at 8 a.m. James hasn't done a background. I have no tax forms. Like I can't legally add him. So it's always a little crazy. But we try to just communicate and over communicate. And something too with the HLC this year, we went through a huge transcript audit because in our task, we have, hey, your first month that you're here, send us your official transcripts. Like we see the unofficial when we hire you and we need the officials. People just weren't really sending them in. And so now, if you don't have an official transcript to us and you're an instructor, you're not moving forward. You're not even getting a tax form to fill out. Like we have to have all of that up front. And so that's been kind of a shift from our provost and something else to really emphasize, which also takes a little time, but we're getting there, right? We all just do what we can. This OTC whoa, this was my favorite. That was my favorite meme. So on our online portal, we do outline everything in 3 categories: before your first day, your first week, and your first month. And in the first month is where we have like the sexual harassment training that's emailed to people automatically within the first 2 weeks, I think, of their creating a MyOTC account. And then we have a list of items before their first day and then that first week. And then we like to assign a go-to for first day details, because a lot of what isn't mentioned is just cultural. I know the very first Friday I worked here, everyone at 4:30 on Friday just started leaving. And I was like, are we getting out early? What's going on? Nobody ever told me that we close at 4:30 on Fridays. And so it's just important to have someone for your new hire to go to, you know, a tour, make sure they know the dress code, understand how to clock in or request time off, make sure they know about the cafe. We love promoting internal departments here at OTC. We have a print shop that'll do your Christmas cards. We got a Cafe 101 that'll cater your party. Of course, we have Starbucks. And then we do new hire orientations, and we have safety and security protocols. And then every full-time employee gets an email to meet and greet with Dr. H, which is now virtual. So college development is something a little new to HR that was kind of given and assigned to us as things have changed at the college. And so one aspect that we really wanted to do was to make it more end user friendly. We have a Center for Workforce Development department, and they have kind of taken the term professional development. And so employees would be like, hey, I need professional development. But when you type it in on our website, it takes you to Center for Workforce Development. And so twice a year we have college development days. And so we just started calling all staff and faculty training, resources, college development. And so we've kind of redone that website. It's of course really important to commit to developing your internal talent. And I know we all have like categories and ways that we do that at our institutions, but they are really necessary. Of course, they enhance knowledge and skills of your current talent, increase the value, and provide further support for professional growth. And I think ours were really good, but it just was hard to find. It was a booklet somebody got in the mail that you had to track down. It wasn't an interactive calendar. It was just kind of difficult to follow, and it was all in person, right? So what we did was we took 3 areas that we thought were really important and easy to identify with all types of employees that we have: community involvement, faculty training, and professional growth. And community involvement could be for faculty or staff. Faculty, more type, don't really apply to staff. Like a lot of our staff don't want to go learn about Canvas or how to engage students. And then professional growth, which also applies to everyone. So we do require, of course, college development hours on performance evaluation, 10 or 20 hours. And that's going to look different at every institution. We know that. But we really wanted to focus on areas of growth rather than faculty versus staff, because the mentality really kind of became, well, I don't really look there because everything on there is just for faculty. There's not really anything for me. And then faculty would say, well, I already know how to do Canvas and there's nothing else for me to learn about. So we really tried to just kind of make categories that could include everyone. So it's kind of HR and our Center for Academic Innovation. And they're amazing, and they come up with all kinds of really valuable tools and new applications and designing online courses and helping instructors pivot to online, which was just absolutely crucial the last year, as a lot of our instructors had to go online or tried to create something more interactive online. So our kind of minds coming together, we were able to create a more user-friendly college development program. And when you go there, you're gonna see we've color-coded the categories because we wanted it to be really easy and eye-catching. And it's just, hey, these are the 3 categories and you can click on the one you want. And I'm actually gonna go here and we're gonna open this up and just kind of dive through it a little bit. I may have to stop sharing this and open a new screen though, so hold on. Do you see it or do I need to open a new screen?
Open a new screen.
Okay, thank you. I can do that. I thought we would just kind of dig around and look at it. So when you come to college development, sorry, Obot, we don't need you right now. You're just gonna see, nope, we don't need a live chat either. So under the HR kind of umbrella, we have a calendar for college development opportunities, which also any 3 of these buttons will take you to. We have an outline for expectation for employees, because a lot of employees are like, hey, I'm a custodian, how many hours of professional development do I need? Or, hey, I'm an instructor, I've been here 25 years, do I really have to do 20 more hours of this? And then something we started was a 24/7 resources and articles segment, which is, we have links to podcasts, we have some Title IX training, we have just kind of a well-rounded area of things people can do on their lunch break or whenever they want. Of course, submit your idea to me. I would love to see everything. And then a way to submit or track development hours. So this generates an automated email to an employee and copies their supervisor, like, hey, this is what I went to from here to here. Because I know in March, when everybody's doing the review, it's hard to remember everything you did the year before to include. And then we do have an area just dedicated to faculty development. So we have like a little outline of what's expected, a link to our college plan, you know, and outlined all of that. And then if you still want to print out a form, you can. We had, you know, a form for 2017, 2018, 2019, and finally in 2020, we're like, why do we even have the year on here? Like, just take it off. I'm tired of uploading this. So it's just little things that you learn. Our calendar, of course, is not as robust during the pandemic, but I did want to talk about some of our wins, which I think we have had quite a few. So we have, you know, a category for everything with a little blip, and then an RSVP type of scenario that will notify HR and the presenter, so they know how many people to expect. But one thing we wanted to, you know, focus on a lot was mental health during the pandemic. And so overcoming stress and burnout. We have behind closed doors, how violence can impact students, PageUp training. We've had meet the new college directors. In previous months, we had a really good one. Oh, that's loading. But we've had like digital financial planning in uncertain times. We've had a lot on one day. We've had leading powerfully, just a really wide variety of professional growth. And one thing that we're looking at doing coming up this summer and this fall are micro sessions. So what we found is that we have a lot of need for the college for refreshers. So for finance to do a 30-minute training, and a lot of this can be covered with videos or PDFs, but for some reason, people like hearing from someone, right? They like going to the training. A lot of times it's hard just to train up on yourself. So like P-card training, from our internal auditor, he was going to do like a little session on, you know, reconciling. We had our internal physical therapy department want to do a little session on exercising at your desk, right? And proper posture. So there's just a lot of need for like little 30-minute things. Some of our relevant content, some of the largest ones we had, the digital detox powering down, we partnered with Cox Hospital, and they had a speaker come in, and we had almost 100 people join virtually for that, which was really, really great to see. We had a lot of participation on that, and it talked about the impact of social media and just the importance of powering down sometimes. We have virtual staff associations, virtual faculty senate. We had a local comedian, Jeff Houghton, come and speak before holiday break, which he's been on some commercials. He's kind of a local star, but it was 30 minutes of nonstop laughs, and we had more positive feedback from that, from those 50 people, and it was just really nice to see. So not all content has to be an hour, but creating relevant content is important. And then we're kind of charging our departments to come up with stuff. Ocki and I were talking, and we're sending out an email to every department saying, hey, everyone should be contributing to this. What do people want to know in your area? You know, Teams training, Excel training, what can we cultivate internally, right? From our own instructors, from our own departments. So we're working on that too, which has been really fun. So kind of wrapping up our best practices, you know, recruitment with efficiencies, analyzing data, preparing your employees, and knowing your applicant pools. Onboarding, you know, streamlining as much as possible. Outline onboarding task and assign a go-to for the first day. And then college development, just commit to developing internal talent, make it end user friendly, and create relevant content. And I had posed quite a few questions to everyone out there. Does anyone, I'm curious to know what application, what online applicant tracking systems you're using, what you're doing for college development. I'd love to have a little Q&A if you guys want. Well, we'll start with, does anyone have an online application tracking system?
So, hey, Cara, this is Michelle. Of course, we've been emailing back and forth. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
currently we have people admin, and so we acquired PageUp. So we're going to be implementing PageUp here very soon.
Great.
To really shorten the applicant experience because our goal is to really just kind of bring about some changes just overall for attracting talent, right? And so anytime you have something that's a little bit more advanced, you know, and a little bit more user-friendly, it's always helpful, but it does, we love the features that it has. And again, that user-friendly aspect of it is so, so important. And so just in terms of development though, since I've only been here a year, but one of the things we're looking to do is to really change the way that we present our training, right? We use safe colleges more so for compliance, and you know that's always good. But then it's now that everything's virtual, and because of the pandemic, we really need to figure out ways to really get people more engaged in wanting to do, you know, those types of things. And so it's going to take some time to get there, but those are the goals, you know, to be able to, you know, increase the development, maybe change the focus a little bit, you know, also think about, you know, how it's presented, how, you know, it shows up, and then also thinking about, you know, what is the outcome that you really want, right, and desire.
Yes. I think those are awesome. And if you want to talk about anything, I'm definitely happy to share. I know we have kind of we do have a more open culture already, where if we were like, hey, I see you're good at this. Like I contacted a girl I know in admin services. I was like, hey, the rumor is you're really good at OneNote training. Would you be interested in a professional development session? And she was like, oh my gosh, I don't really present. I don't know if I can do it. And I was like, hey, I know you can do it. I'll do it with you. I'll help you. Let's put something on the calendar. And we had 28 people show up and watch Kaylin just naturally work her magic with OneNote. And I think we all took something, you know, from that. So a lot of times it's not having your professional speakers, it's just kind of showcasing what you already have, but helping them present it in a way that it's really beneficial for everyone. Yeah,
the other thing is I'm also working with the Diversity Council, actually taking that over. And one of the things that I've learned is people just want to contribute, right? And so in your settings, you have some really gifted and really talented individuals. And so really just kind of pulling that out of them because they want to share, right? And so when you can get them excited and they know that you truly, really value what they bring to the table, then, you know, it's all a go. It's, you know, they're all on board and it always usually works out, you know, pretty well. So, but I will have Thomas call you. He's gonna have a lot of questions.
Okay. Absolutely. And it's nice to talk to another PageUp user. I mean, I'm curious to see what you guys are doing. And, you know, we have a lot, we just created a new status in PageUp called contingent offer, and it's only for instructors. And that first communication from us to them is, hey, send us your official transcripts and take this background check. And you don't move forward until we get that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I just think having some hard and fast rules, right? You know, where, you know, you really need some definitives. I mean, that's really important so that you can continue the people moving through the process and not have people hanging around or lingering and, you know, things not being closed out. So those are all really, really important. But love your presentation. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. It was kind of my first one.
Hey, you're right.
Thanks.
Cara, I have a question in regards to like the position training plans that you have for the development, the 1 day, and then you said a week and then a month out. Are those somewhat of a structure for everybody the same? And if so, would you be willing to share that with the group? And then I'm assuming that then you tailor it specifically towards that specific job. And then if so, do you get like the division chairs and or the department head involved in creating those customized training plans?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And when you're saying first day, first week for a month, that's our onboarding portal. And so we have 3 different ones for the 3 types of employees that we hire. We have just a staff one, a faculty and adjunct, and then we have like a part-time. So our faculty and adjunct, their onboarding portal includes a new adjunct orientation course. Their transcripts are required before day 1. They have more like a link to instructor resources and to Canva. So their onboarding portal looks a little bit different than a staff one. Whereas for staff, we require official transcripts in your first week, your first 30 days. We have the sexual harassment training up a little higher. There's not as many, qualifications based questions. But yeah, we do have 3 different portals, and I'd be happy to share what we have included in that. All of them do, of course, come standard with another link to the background check, tax forms, I-9s, alcohol usage policy, computer usage policy. I think conduct, like a link to our policies and procedures. We don't have a handbook anymore, but we have a link to like OTC policies and procedures. So some of them, a lot of them are standard, but they vary just a little bit. Other questions from you guys? I love it. Those have been great questions. I'm always curious to know what other people are doing.
I do have a quick question for you, and I know others have asked this in the chat. I know we're all multitasking, still doing our jobs, but is it available where you can send this to us? Because I know I have to jump in and out a little bit, but I think this is great information.
Oh, good. Sure. Yeah. I think my presentation is going to be available through Kaylin Ramsey. And then I'm happy to email. Let me put my email back up here. But if you want to email me, I'll absolutely respond with anything you got. I know Michelle had emailed me. She would ask me PageUp stuff, and I think I got busy on a transcript audit. So I'm sorry if I didn't respond back to you, Michelle. But yes, PageUp's great. If you guys have any questions about the content we put in there or college development, there's my email, griffinc@otc.edu. So definitely just shout out. I'm happy to help.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you've been so helpful. I appreciate it.
Oh, hey, absolutely.
And yeah, we will be sharing their PowerPoints and the recording of the webinar meeting today to everyone that registered. So you'll get that in your email.
Awesome.
Are there any more questions for Cara? Because she still has a little bit of time, but if not, then we can take a short break before Kelli starts. Or if anyone just has any random things that they want to say while we're all together.
It's a tell-all for OTC. Go ahead and ask anything you like.
Right.
I have one more question, Cara.
Yeah.
So for everyone, I'm totally new to higher ed. I come from a corporate business background, so I'm still trying to learn the higher ed world, if you will. So at Crowder College, and you probably all of you know this, or maybe it's everywhere, I'm trying to figure this out, that if an applicant internally is going to apply to another position within Crowder family, an internal applicant, so we would say, do you see that as a promotion? Do you guys, I know you talked a little bit about allowing the internal applicants to have somewhat of a time to post early or apply earlier, or do you see that as totally ending a position and applying for a new one? Just curiosity, and maybe others can jump in as well. Sure. Just because we don't see it as a promotion at all. And so I was just curious how everyone else does that.
That's a great question, and I can share a couple things to that. So it seems like in every scenario, there's 2 or 3 possibilities, right? So when somebody leaves, can they post it, or we have what's called a position status change form. Sometimes there's a need for people to move up or fill a role without posting. And so we did like 50 of those last year, like a lot. And what we consider a promotion is if you have a classification chart, if that person is moving to a higher classification, higher salary, an administrative or director role, from non-exempt to exempt, or from like peers to PSRS, we consider that a promotion. And so those are kind of the things that we look at. And we have an auto-generated form through DocuSign for internal transfers like that. Like we just have one person at Table Rock campus that does something, and they wanted to be a coordinator of high school programs to fit the student success model. There was no one else there qualified. They moved, we did a transfer form for them. And it was considered a promotion because they had a higher wage of rate, pay rate, and then a little different classification. So we handle that way. And then if there's someone leaving to which other people would be qualified for the position, we post internally. Yeah, those are kind of the 4 things we base, whether it's lateral or promotion, but we would reference the classification chart there. But yeah, it seems like there's 3 possibilities for any scenario in HR these days.
I have to say, Cara, you keep saying, you've only been in this role for a short time, but it sounds like you're a pro. You took to it
there.
well.
Thanks.
Hello, Kelli.
Hello.
If you don't mind giving us a little introduction about yourself, since you had to step away for introductions, and tell us a fun fact about yourself.
Okay, yes, my apologies for not being here at the beginning. There was an important meeting that I had to attend. So can you see my screen? Is my screen sharing?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I am the Employee Relations Director here at Ozarks Technical Community College. I've been here for 3 years now, and my background is I've been in human resources, various positions, going on 25 years now. So hands-on, the whole gamut. I've been in single, HR departments where it was just me, up to one of my earliest positions. I was in a department, there were 20 of us. So most of my career has been in managerial director type roles. So fun fact. Oh, goodness gracious. I find myself to be a boring person. Okay. My father, for my 21st birthday, took me skydiving. So I don't know. Here's something more interesting, I suppose. I am the proud owner, along with my husband, of 6 dogs. They range in size from a 4-pound Yorkie all the way up to a 125-pound Irish Wolfhound. So, and then everything in between. So
you're a daredevil, skydiving and lots of dogs.
Right. So, well, okay. So I am sorry I missed everybody's introduction earlier. I see we have a nice group with us today. So I am here to discuss, let's see here, those fun things known as difficult issues and conflict resolution. As I mentioned, I have many years of hands-on practical experience. And so I would like to start out by saying that some of the things I'm going to present here today, many of you may already be utilizing. I don't know the level that everybody of previous experience that everybody has here, but there are some things that no matter how many years of experience, you can always get better at or learn. At least that's how I feel about things. So what I'm going to do here today is just provide you some, useful, practical, everyday information. These topics are obviously extremely large, and you could do entire day workshops on them. In fact, in one of my previous positions, the company every manager or supervisor had to go through a 2-day intensive training for managers and supervisors, where the company contracted with an outside consulting firm, and there were typically like 30 people, managers, directors, in these classes, these 2-day classes that it was mandated, we had to attend. And for 2 days, we would have to act out, in a sense, various scenarios and how to handle it and how not to handle it. And we would have to do that in front of all of our classmates. So just thank your lucky stars you don't have to do something like that. That is a completely intimidating experience. So, all righty, so let's just get on to the nitty gritty of it. So, whoa, excuse me, that wasn't supposed to happen. Okay. So we get up every morning and we have the best intentions, and we're having a great, wonderful morning. And we anticipate when we get to work, it's just going to be a fairy tale, right? Everything's going to be great. At least that's what we hope. But more times than not, and let me see if I can get this to work better. Okay. More times than not, this is the reality, right? I can, in a sense, so to speak, have a blank calendar for the day, no meeting schedule or what have you. And in no time at all, I can get a single phone call, and that can be it for the rest of my day. So I think we can all relate to this. And I know this is definitely how I feel most days. I arrive at work all fresh and ready to go. And by the end of the day, I'm going home, and this is exactly how I feel. Like, what in the world happened? What happened? Or you might be familiar with some days like this, where, you simply just want your employees to do their job, but they might have different thoughts sometimes. So what will I get from this training? What I hope to do is to provide you with some basic knowledge on recognizing causes of workplace conflict and what the difference is between healthy versus damaging conflict. We will also discuss 5 different methods you can utilize for resolving conflict. And then we will also discuss some steps that you can utilize to work with your employees to help resolve this conflict. And then at the very end, I'm going to provide just some helpful tips and phrases that can be useful when you're dealing with these types of situations. So first, let's define conflict. Conflict is always going to exist, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be bad per se. So conflict is an emotional reaction to a situation or interaction that signals some kind of disagreement. The emotions felt could be various things, from fear, hopelessness, sadness, bitterness, anger. But the key is that the conflict, it has to be expressed or articulated before it can be resolved. I've had many times where, somebody's come to me with an issue that has gone on for years. But until it's brought to my attention or to light, so to speak, we can't resolve the issue or conflict if we aren't aware that it exists, correct? So conflict, as I'm going to mention here in a little bit, there's healthy versus unhealthy or negative conflict. But look at it as an obstacle to peace, cohesiveness, or maybe even civility in your workplace. But remember, it's always going to exist, okay? So let's get into what some of the causes of workplace conflict are. And I have quite a list here. A big one is lack of clarity. or uncertainty or changes. As we all know, most people don't like things to change. Or it could be that the rules keep changing, which causes either fear or maybe frustration with your employees. Misunderstandings, that's a big one, or ineffective or lack of communication. I think we all have heard that so many times, you know, poor communication, no communication. Low performance, that could be an issue. Competition for resources. We all have limited resources, right? So we all have limited budgets, whatever those resources may be. And in a sense, your employees may be competing for these resources, or your department may be competing for these resources. As we all know, everybody has different points of view or differences of opinion. We are all different individuals with different minds. Some of us may have had to deal with difficult personalities. We communicate with one another differently. How, again, one person thinks is totally different from how another person may think. We spend large amounts of time together. I mean, look at how many hours we spend with our coworkers during the day, and then versus, you know, good quality time at home with our family. I mean, it's like work gets the best of us sometimes, right? And then in some positions, your employees may depend upon one another to get the job done. So if person A has a piece of the puzzle and they aren't getting their piece done, then that affects person B, and then that affects person C, so on and so forth. And or it may be that we have expectations that are just not communicated, and then those expectations are not met because the person didn't know what was expected of them because it wasn't communicated. So since I don't have the ability, or if anybody would like to speak up, there was a recent poll conducted regarding some issues of, you know, causes of workplace conflict. Would anybody care to speak up and take a guess what, like, the number 1, number 2, and number 3 answers were as far as workplace conflict? Anybody? Okay, well, so the number 1 answer is that ineffective or lack of communication. Probably not a surprise there, right? Number 2 is difficult personalities. And then number 3 is rumors or gossip. Number 4 is that the rules keep on changing. And keep in mind, if you aren't providing accurate information to your team, then they're going to fill in the blanks with the rumors, the gossip. And those rumors and gossip, most of the time, usually aren't the truth. So you always need to be communicating with your team and keeping them in the know, so to speak, so that those rumors and gossip don't blossom. As I mentioned, there are 2 different types of conflict. We have healthy conflict, and we have damaging or negative conflict. So, you know, most people, when they think of the word conflict, they always think bad, but it doesn't always have to be bad. Sometimes it can be a positive. So when disagreements are communicated in a supportive environment, that can foster the generation of new ideas or ways to problem solve. For instance, I like to give real life examples. So if your department or team, you're like conducting a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and you're doing these activities in a supportive environment, you can come up with really great ideas or ways to problem solve. But keep in mind, you know, your team has to feel that they are in that supportive environment. Sometimes tension can increase awareness or shed a light on a growing workplace problem. So those are some examples of healthy conflict. Now, damaging or negative conflict are such things as name calling, personal attacks on somebody. If an employee becomes silent, withdrawn, or they are afraid to speak up, those would be your non-supportive environments. As I mentioned before, cliques, gossip, and rumors, or a lack of mutual respect. So why should we get involved if there is negative conflict? It's their problem, right? We don't need to worry about it. Well, that's exactly incorrect, because if you avoid the conflict, the negative conflict, it might be considered your best short-term strategy. You're just not going to worry about it. But in the long run, that's not good, because it will continue to fester and cause issues and problems amongst your department, your team. So, think about that. Is it impacting you or your team? And if so, it's better to address it, because if you don't, then it becomes more of a cultural issue. And the longer you avoid it, the longer it's going to take to turn it around. More energy is going to be exerted. So you as supervisors need to learn to manage the negative conflicts amongst your team members, so that your department can continue to run efficiently, effectively, and that your objectives are met. But you also need to know when to step in. I'm going to go through some examples here in a little bit of where it may be a timing issue. You're not going to address it just right now, but soon, but don't put it off too long, because then you'll never get around to it. So effective supervisors hone, learn, manage the skills for managing conflict process and turning disagreements into ideas, but it's not an easy thing to do. And I just noticed I have a misspelled word. As my last 24 hours did not go as expected, and so I was working on this late last night. So I hate misspelled words. That's just a me thing, though. Okay. So what are some of the consequences of unresolved conflict? Your employees may feel that they have to take one person's side or another, or the employees may just totally withdraw from the conflict, or worse yet, they may check out from work entirely. And these are things that I have heard personally. Over the years, I've dealt with many issues. And sometimes I'll have people say to me that they know the tension between like their supervisor and one of their coworkers, and it makes the whole vibe in the office just really tense. Or there will be those people who just it leaves a negative connotation, and they just kind of totally check out. And then sooner or later, they just may simply leave because they don't want to work around it or be around it anymore. It lowers morale and productivity. Your employees may be focused on the issue, or again, they just don't want to be around it. Your employees may, if they work in teams, they may now be divided because of that conflict, again, feeling they have to take one side or the other. And then when you get down to the really worst case scenarios, they may come to you, lodge a complaint. There may, if it's serious enough, have to be an investigation, and nobody likes those, I can tell you that. And then in your most extreme cases, you could have instances of workplace violence. And I know we've all heard of those scenarios in the news, and those are never good things. So now we're going to discuss some different methods you can utilize to resolve the conflict. And so what we have here is the Thomas Conflict Mode instrument. It was created in the 1970s, and it's an instrument that demonstrates how people deal with and manage conflict. So in any conflict situation, we have two choices. We decide how assertive we will choose to be, versus how cooperative we choose to believe. And you can see the different scales, assertiveness and cooperativeness, and then the different methods that you can utilize and how they fall on that scale. So on the assertiveness scale, that's when a person chooses to satisfy their own needs. Where on the cooperativeness, this is how much a person chooses to satisfy the other person's need. So when these two independent but related traits are combined, as you see on this metric, you come up with these 5 different methods, which shows the different ways of dealing with the conflict. So no one method is all good or all bad. It just depends on the situation, and you have to assess that and make a determination, you know, how you are going to deal with that conflict. So all methods have benefits and drawbacks to them, depending again on the individuals and the situations. So let's dig into each one of these. So we have again, the competing, accommodating, avoiding, compromising, or collaborating. And there is no one perfect way to resolve a conflict, and sometimes you may need to utilize multiple methods to reach a resolution. You may start out utilizing one method, but then later on have to use a different method. Okay, so the first one we're going to get into is competing. And this involves handling the conflict through unilateral decision making. It's primarily utilized for situations that require quick action, instances where there's no room for compromise or debate, situations requiring the need to make hard or unpopular decisions. But what you need to be sure and do is to lay the groundwork and explain why you had to do this. So use this method only when necessary, because it can provoke negative responses, and it's typically not seen as a win-win situation. So here's a couple of real life applicable examples. A company faced with budgetary constraints, the recession, they unilaterally develop a fair solution, so to speak, to this problem without consulting the employees. And an example is layoffs and the pink slip. Or another real case, current scenario, a company dealing with a new world pandemic called the COVID-19 is faced with how to keep its employees safe while continuing to keep the doors open. And that example would be mandatory face masks. So I'm sure all of us on this webinar today had to deal with this scenario, as did we. And as you know, it was not popular amongst everybody. I had to handle all the employee COVID cases for our college, as well as accommodation requests and such. And I had about 7 or 8 employees that I had to work with regarding wearing face masks. Actually, now I think about it, maybe more like 9. Some had medical issues where they couldn't wear a face mask, but we made it mandatory. Everybody, students, instructors, everybody had to wear a face mask. And so we had to work with those employees through those situations and see what accommodations we could provide, so on and so forth. So again, this method is the total opposite of making decisions by consensus. It's those times when you just have to make those hard decisions, and that's it. So our next example here we have is compromising. And this method involves handling the conflict by reaching a resolution that this is kind of like the exact opposite of our previous scenario. In this situation, it's a win-win on both sides of the table. So this is primarily used when you were resolving issues of moderate to high importance. You need to find a solution that involves equal commitment on both sides of the desk or what have you, table. It is an option when collaboration and competing have failed. or the issue is complex and compromising is a good temporary fix for now, and it is considered the most practical solution. So an example of that would be, in our previous scenario, instead of having layoffs, the pink slip, we would either temporarily not fill current openings or vacated positions, which I don't know if Cara, touched on that previously or not, I'm not sure. But at that time, way back last year, when COVID first started getting rampant, there were decisions made of whether, all vacated positions were going to be filled or not, and some were not, and still have not been. We heard of, other agencies, companies, schools, what have you, that actually did have some layoffs. So, or you could offer early retirement packages. That's what we did here at OTC, and we had about 10 or 12 individuals take advantage of that. Or you could convert everybody to a reduced work week for all or some. So instead of everybody getting a 40-hour work week, maybe temporarily everybody may get a 32-hour work week instead. So these are some examples of those situations. So collaborating. This method involves handling the conflict through team input. You may be familiar or call it brainstorming. So this technique is particularly useful if all parties in the conflict want to find a resolution, but are unable to agree on what that resolution should be. So you utilize this when you need to gain support from the team. You use different perspectives as an opportunity to learn, and then you need to improve your relationship through the collaborative method, but it can require creativity. This scenario is considered to be more of a win-win because both parties realize their concerns and they find a solution, but it's not, again, preferable for every type of situation. So you're thinking, well, this is a win-win, so why not? Well, why wouldn't it be? Well, in those situations where you need a very fast solution, this method would not work because this method takes the longest of all the methods. Again, it's that collaboration. Like when you handle accommodation requests, you sit down and you have those discussions and such, and that takes time to work through. So if you have a situation where you don't have time, this is not going to be the method that you'll utilize. So here's an example. A supervisor is faced with the issue in their department. The supervisor brings the department together and gives each team member an opportunity to contribute and ensures that all ideas are valued and respected. Again, that supportive environment. No belittling, no putting anybody down. So instead of one person lecturing to the rest of the group, there's collaborative discussion. It requires each team member to participate and share their thoughts and opinions, no matter how far outside the box they are. And this will break down the boundaries of the hierarchy often found in workplaces and keeps everyone engaged in finding the solution. When everybody has a stake in the conversations, meetings, they can become more productive and collaborative. So our last scenario that we have here, or I've lost count, maybe this is not our last, accommodating. This is where you allow the other side essentially to win. And this should only be utilized for specific circumstances. So when you need to maintain perspective in a situation, or you make a concession now while keeping the bigger picture in mind. So you need to make those decisions on what you can just let go. Again, keeping the bigger picture in mind. With this method, you'll keep peace and create goodwill. And this is valuable if the conflict, again, is part of a larger project, and the concession now might mean an even better solution later on down the road in the future. Or maybe the other person has a better alternative or solution to your ways to satisfy the issue. So you're going to utilize this only when issues are low or manageable, but don't fall in a cycle of appeasement, because then that will be picked up on quickly, and then you'll always be known as, accommodating those people who maybe don't need accommodating, but maybe need a different type of approach, to getting their work done or what have you. Some example is when you might be addressing an issue with an employee, and upon the discussion come to realize that you did not have all the accurate facts. So instead of digging your heels in to save face, you sincerely apologize and acknowledge your mistake. So this could be an example of accommodating. Okay, avoiding. Now this is our last one. So this is when you make an active decision at this time not to handle the conflict. This approach is best used for situations that are not necessarily related to work and should be solved through other means. So you'll utilize this for unimportant, trivial, or non-work related issues. If you need to buy time for now until a better or a good resolution can be reached, or to allow individuals the opportunity to cool down so that the tensions can be reduced. Or when the smoke issue at hand is simply a smoke screen for a real problem that needs to be addressed. So in this example or method, you're going to be delaying at this time, maybe to utilize or get more information. So it's usually temporary or situational. So an example of this is when you notice that an employee's been behaving strangely, differently, and this is a real life scenario that I had to work with a supervisor on. And that maybe the employee gets easily agitated, is starting to forget things. So rather than confront or address this with the employee at that time, you decide just to keep an eye on things and document. Now, if it continues on and is more serious, then you need to address. But sometimes it can be a change in medication. Sometimes it can just be a lot of things going on in the personal life, and might just resolve itself. But what you'll want to do is make sure that you document and keep an eye on things. And then if it does need to be addressed later on, then you're going to address it. So these are just very everyday, basic type of scenarios I'm sure we all can relate to. So now we're going to go through the steps in the conflict resolution process, and I'm just going to check my time here to see how I am doing. So, oh, good, I'm doing good. Okay, great. So there are 6 steps in the conflict resolution process. And you may just do some of these and not even realize that, you're going through the process or handling situations. So 1, you definitely need to clarify what the disagreement or issue is. That is foremost. You definitely need to get to the heart of the actual issue. You need to establish a common goal for all parties involved. You need to discuss ways to meet the common goal, determine the barriers, if any, to the goal, and then agree on the best way to resolve the issue, and then acknowledge the agreed solution and determine the responsibilities each party has in reaching that resolution. This process needs to be completed by all parties in the conflict together. It needs to be participatory. Radical listening skills are very important in this process. That is something that you typically have to learn and then continually practice. It's not uncommon that when somebody contacts me with an issue problem, I'm listening, and they'll go, "Did I lose you? Are you still there?" And my response is, "No, I'm listening to you." I don't need to constantly be butting in and but I'm listening to them. And then once they have shared with me what they want to share, then at that time, I start asking those follow-up questions as needed. So really make sure to learn and practice good listening. It's not always easy or natural. Sometimes you'll have pauses and you just need to learn to accept that and be comfortable with, you know, times of silence and such. So, but make sure you're really truly listening. Make sure that the other person feels heard, and that way you can really get to the heart of the issue without wasting your time or maybe even creating more conflict. So let's go through those steps. So step one, again, you need to clarify what the actual issue is. And this means that all parties agree what the actual issue is. And again, reframe any negativity into a productive conversation. So what you'll do is discuss what needs are not being met on one or both sides of the issue, and make sure everybody has a mutual understanding and agree, yes, this is what the issue is, and that, you know, it's not something else. You always obtain as much information as possible on each side's point of view. And then again, at the end, you're going to ask those questions until you're certain that you and everybody has an understanding of the true issue. Keep in mind that whoever comes to you, so to speak, first, that may not be the actual issue or truth. Just because that person comes to you first doesn't necessarily mean that they are right and everybody's wrong. Again, you got to listen to everybody to find out what the true issue is. At any time, if anybody has any questions, feel free to pipe up or, you know, whatever, okay? So the next step is where you establish that common goal for both parties. So in this step, everybody's going to agree what the desired outcome needs to be. So you are having those discussions, those interactive conversations. What do we need to see happen? What's our common goal? And then, you know, it can be something as simple as, you know, we just want this conflict or tension or whatever between us to end. So you're having those engaging conversations. So your next step is determining if there are any barriers to meeting that goal. And if so, you know, acknowledge those and see how you can address those barriers. You can, you know, ask if we all had the outcome that we desired, what would that look like? Make sure you're realistic about what can and cannot be changed about the situation, because we all know there are times when there are things that are simply out of our control, and you need to be sure and recognize that. And if there are those barriers, obstacles, you know, how do we get around that? How do we work around this? So as you can tell, this is very much a collaborative effort. Everybody's got to buy in to making things better, obtaining the goal. So you're having that discussion, how can we meet that goal, and focus on what is needed or wanted. This involves, again, collaboration, brainstorming, and as I mentioned before, don't be afraid to explore outside the box or reframe. Discuss until all your options are exhausted. And remember to approach it as a way for growth for everybody. Missed opportunities. We've got some great opportunities available to us. Make sure you're approaching it as positive. And in this step, you may be saying things such as, are you willing to do such and such and such? Would you be willing to try such and such and such? So you're throwing all sorts of ideas and options out there to come to the best solution. And so once everybody agrees upon what the best resolution to that conflict is, again, everybody has to come to an agreement and make sure it's a solution that everybody can live with. And you're going to discuss the responsibilities that each party holds or is responsible for in coming to this resolution, solution, what have you. And then make sure that there's a means of ensuring that this conflict or issue doesn't happen again, so that you don't have to go back to step one and here we are again. So everybody's going to acknowledge the agreed upon solution and determine the responsibilities that everybody has in reaching that. And everybody needs to express what their responsibility is so that they are aware of it, you know, verbally state it, have it written out. Yes, this is what I'm going to do. Yes, this is what I'm going to do. We're all agreeing upon this. And, you know, acknowledge it, address it as, okay, this is our win-win solution for everybody. Again, positivity. You know, during this stage, parties are going to say, you know, I agree to do this. I acknowledge that I have responsibility for this. An example in a real life scenario I had was we had an employee that was having severe attendance issues. And we go through our disciplinary process of, you know, coaching forms, verbal, first written warning, second written warning, so on and so forth. And so we had come to a final warning for this individual. And this individual was a wonderful person, very pleasant to work with, not negative or anything, but just really had problems getting to work, and especially on Mondays. And so their attendance was, you know, affecting their coworkers and their department and so on and so forth. So when we came to that very final warning, we're talking with the employee, and I made the employee verbally speak back to me what we were asking and needing from them, and what would happen if we had to meet again to discuss these issues. So I made them verbally express that back to me. So they were verbally acknowledging that if I don't address this, my attendance issues, this is my last warning, and I will no longer have a job if we have to meet again and discuss this. So if you, you know, do have to have that unfortunate next meeting, you know, you can remind them, well, in our last meeting that we had, we discussed this, and you know, you verbally stated that you acknowledged and understood what was going to occur if we had to meet again. And unfortunately, here we are meeting again. And they agree. They said, yes, I remember that. And I know exactly what I needed to do, and I failed to do that. So, nobody likes to have those issues and conversations, but if you're ever, you know, spend any time in HR, you're going to have those. So here's some just little do's and don'ts for you of resolving conflict. So make sure you are very clear what the actual issue is. Sometimes it may not necessarily be what is initially presented to you. It may be something totally different, and you have to get down to the nitty-gritty. What is actually causing the issue? Make sure to listen to everybody and to, again, engage, listen very actively. And then you're going to have those open-ended questions at the end. Always make sure you acknowledge how employees are feeling, but be sure to make sure you're always separating feelings versus facts, what's factual. Make sure you acknowledge the individual, but know that, you know, acknowledging doesn't necessarily mean that you're agreeing with them. You're just acknowledging what they're stating, how they're feeling. You know, you're acknowledging that person, you're acknowledging that individual and what they're stating. Make sure you always stay focused on the issue, not the person. It's never personal, right? It's never personal. It's not, it's the issue at hand. It's an issue you're not coming to work. It's an issue you're not doing your work. I like you as a person, but the issue is we have this job that needs to be done, and you hold this job, so we need you to do this job. Make sure you manage emotions. People are emotional, some more than others, and I've got a few tips on how to handle those emotional situations as well that we'll get to here in a few minutes. Make sure you're always identifying the points that everybody agrees upon, and not always just acknowledging the disagreements. And then make sure you resolve the conflict as quickly as possible. As I mentioned, it's easy to ignore it or put it off and just pretend it doesn't exist, but that always makes the issue so much bigger down the road. And then again, be open to any and all solutions. So I put my Basset Hound picture here because the size of their ears totally fascinates me. I mean, Bassets have these huge, massive ears, and I'm a big dog person. Anybody that knows me, I'm huge on dogs. So, remember the Basset picture with the big ears. Make sure you're always listening. And there's a saying that says, knowing the facts may change the feelings, but knowing the feelings may not, but won't change the facts. Okay. So make sure you're sticking to the facts. And anger is not necessarily always the truth. And always make sure, you have clarity, because you can't have alignment until you have clarity on what the actual issue at hand is. And sometimes, you really got to dig to get there. So again, do not focus on personality traits that cannot be changed. Again, it's not personal, okay? Never impose any of your personal values or beliefs on somebody else. We all have to work with individuals that we may not agree with on a personal level or whatever, but you have to work with that individual. So, you need to make sure you're practicing civility, okay? And make sure you do not disregard the feelings of the employee. Make sure you do not allow emotions to take over the conversation. We all know it can be very hard or difficult when you have somebody crying, begging in a sense for one last chance. I just need one more chance. I just need one more chance. Well, no, unfortunately, the last meeting we had with your final warning, that was your one more chance. And, as you were well aware, if we had to meet again, what that would mean, and here we are. So your final warning, or our last discussion, that was your one last chance. So and make sure, again, you're not interrupting or attacking. You're listening. So here's just a few helpful tips that I've come across over the years, and we are doing really good on time. So I hope you have a lot of questions for me. Okay, so make sure you always watch your tone, and make sure your tone signals discussion and doesn't feel like you're just putting the person through the ringer, like you're, in a police station in the interrogation room. Okay, you always need to be upfront and direct, but not in a way that's blasting the person. Always make sure you're respectful and demonstrating care and concern. And remember not to discount the way somebody is feeling. Okay, make sure you're listening, but always also that you're getting to the heart of the situation. If at all possible, meet in a neutral, but of course private location. I try to always make my office as inviting as possible. But if there's a lot of parties going to be meeting or involved, I prefer if the conference room is available, because the last thing I want to do is have it seem like I'm sitting from behind my desk judging or looking down, or sometimes just that office environment can really, just tense people up. So again, make sure, that everybody feels comfortable that you're having a discussion. Make sure you address the behavior in the moment or as close as possible to it. It's very frustrating when, you're approached with a supervisor wanting to address an issue with an employee that happened 2 months ago. And as we all should know, as they say, when it comes appraisal time, your employees should not ever be surprised by what you are telling them, because if they are, then that's on you that they are surprised, because you should have been talking and sharing that with them not all along, not just waiting for once a year to blast the employee for something they did a year ago. And trust me, if you do that, you're going to hear it from the employee. They're going to say, well, why are you just now waiting to tell me this instead of telling me back in 6 months ago when this occurred? Okay, so if you put it off because you don't want to deal with it, then later never happens, or when later does happen and you're forced to deal with it, then it's usually much more of a bigger, uglier issue. Make sure you're managing the emotions while also acknowledging them. This helps the conversation flow. I understand what you're saying, or make sure you use those clarifiers. Am I understanding you correctly that da 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 da? Always make sure you're keeping the focus on the issue, not the person, not the individual. Do not overgeneralize. Make sure you're precise and factual. Don't broad brush a situation saying, well, you always act this way. You never da 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 da. No, don't use those always, never, blah, blah, blah terms, okay? And make sure you're always using clear and neutral language. Refer to specific examples and facts. That's very, very important. When you're doing a coaching statement or what have you, you need to give them specific examples and facts instead of overgeneralizing, because again, you'll hear it from the employee. As I mentioned earlier, you need to become comfortable with silence. That's sometimes a way an individual is wanting to maybe they're not being accurate, or maybe not honest or answering your questions. Don't be afraid to sit there in silence for a little bit, make them talk. And then if at all possible, always preserve the relationship. The individual that I mentioned, well, actually there were 2 individuals that had attendance issues this year that had to be dealt with. Always handle that kindly. The one individual in particular, I just thought she was just the sweetest individual. And her sister still works for us today. Whenever I see her sister, I ask about the sister. I know where she works now. She got another job after us. And I whenever I see her sister, oh, hey, how's so-and-so doing and everything. And, if I run into her on the street somewhere, there's not going to be any issues or hardship because she's just a sweet girl. And she still had to call a few times with some questions about COBRA and so on and so forth. And there was no awkwardness. It was like, oh, hey, hi, how you doing? And so on and so forth. So make sure, if at all possible, you can preserve that relationship and treat the individuals with respect. Sometimes they're going to be upset because they essentially didn't get their way of continuing to, come in late or not come to work at all or what have you. But remember, you didn't create that situation. You're just having to deal with it and handle it. So they had a choice to make, and well, this is where we're at, So always be consistent. Oh my goodness, this is so important. If you are not consistent, your good employees, the ones you don't have issues with, you're going to create a huge morale issue. So you always have to treat everybody consistently. Nothing will erode a relationship quicker than perceived inequality, and you'll run off your good employees or lower their morale severely. So always keep that in mind. Always be consistent. Treat everybody the same. Always be ready for how you're going to respond to sarcasm, stonewalling, crying, etc. Address the issue openly and sincerely. I can tell you 9 times out of 10, based on previous behaviors going into those meetings, I thought, well, this is how the person is going to behave or act. And 9 times out of 10, they behaved or took it the exact opposite. There were times where I thought so-and-so was just going to be irate and flip out. And basically they were kind of like, well, I'm surprised it took you this long to do it. Yeah, I know. I no longer have a job. It's almost like they were just waiting to see. Or the ones that you thought, were just going to be like, yeah, okay, I understand. And they just totally flip out on you. And it's like, wow, I've never seen this side of you before. This is different. So, so if you encounter that crying situation, it's okay to say, hey, let's just take a moment, get some breath before we continue. I always have a box of Kleenexes in my office. Anger, you could, if somebody's approaching you with anger, you can try and calm them down, and just say, can you, explain to me why you're so angry, so that I can understand. Again, silence. You could, after a few minutes, if they continue to not say anything, you could approach that saying, I'm not quite sure how to interpret, your silence. We do need to talk about this, reflect upon, what the issue is, what's been happening, and come to a solution, a resolution, what have you. So, you can't avoid this. We do need to have this discussion, okay? Or avoidance. Sometimes we'll have those situations where the person will go, well, what about so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so? Well, we're not talking about them right now. We're talking about you. Let's not worry about them. We're you and I are here talking. And then reluctance or stonewalling, you could, discuss, well, we need to get on the same page. I'm sensing we're not here. What do we need to do to get on the same page? Let's get there, okay? And I always tell individuals that I'm always here to listen and provide assistance. And the biggest thing, this cracks me up all the time, is whenever somebody's calling you with an issue or a problem, in their mind, and again, in their world, they always feel like it's just them. I get this, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm so sorry to bug you. Oh, you must dread hearing from me, yada, yada, yada. And naturally, we're not advertising that, oh, I'm working with 10 other individuals in the same boat as you. But I always tell people, you are not alone. Trust me. That is why I am here. And I stay quite busy. And that always makes them feel so much better. It always, I can tell, it relieves them, it relieves the tension, because they always feel like, oh, it's me, I'm such a lousy, bad supervisor. It's only me, I'm the only one having these issues, problems. And I'm like, oh no, trust me, you have no clue, no clue. So, you know, just relate to people and make them realize we're all doing the best we can, and we're all in this together. And, you know, at some point in time, we're all going to have those difficult situations, those difficult employees, those difficult issues. And we're all trying to work through them for the best solution. You know, we don't want people to have to lose their job or what have you, but sometimes that is the solution, you know, that has to happen. So just make sure you're always letting people know it's not just you, because I can tell you, everybody that ever sits in my office or calls me always thinks it's just them. And as we know, it is not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, right? Some of us anyhow. So here's some helpful phrases that you can utilize in the conflict resolution process. And as Kayla mentioned earlier, you all are going to get copies of our presentations. And so, you know, you can keep these on hand, and practice makes perfect, correct, right? So not that these are skills necessarily everybody wants to perfect, but if you get into a managerial or supervisory position, you're going to have issues. So that's just part of it. So always make sure you are letting them know that you really appreciate their input. Or if somebody did not meet that resolution solution, their piece of the puzzle they were supposed to complete, you know, X, Y, or Z, ask them what held you back from meeting your commitment. You know, listen to them, find out, okay? Or we have this instance where, okay, you are saying one thing to me, but you are doing something completely different. Always, you know, ask, what can I do to help you, support you, get you to where you need to be? What do you need from me? And listen to what they say, listen. Or you can say, we may have a misunderstanding. Maybe I was not clear about my expectations and what we needed. So let's discuss those again. Let's go over those again. So again, providing clarity. So these are just some terminology, phrases, things that you can use to open those conversations, open those discussions, have that open dialogue. So for my final note for everybody, just remember that a bad manager can take good staff and destroy it. I have personally seen it, and from an HR person, oh, that is just so heartbreaking when you see a good or a bad manager at work and the destruction that they are creating. You know, I've seen good managers or bad, I keep on saying bad managers run off the good employees, and the ones that stay, they're sticking around for that paycheck or the benefits, but they've lost all motivation. So, you know, as we say, when we create policies, we're creating them for that one person out of 100, because your 99 are just coming to work, doing their job, creating no issues. I mean, we don't want to be the bad guys, the enforcers, but that's part of our job. That's part of what we do. And that's why we have to have those policies, is for that one person out of 1,000 who's going to be an issue. And we have to have those policies to fall back on. So, well, okay, that is the end of my presentation. So I'm hoping I have a lot of great questions. Otherwise, We'll break 10 minutes early, but does anybody have any questions for me? Please.
Yeah, and feel free to unmute yourself as you did before and ask away. We did have some comments in the chat for you, Kelly. Vicky said Gunner is in the office today. I'm assuming that's her dog. So yay.
Yay, yes, yes. I have been meaning for probably 3 months now to get over and see Gunner. I have seen pictures. As I mentioned, I'm a huge doggy and a dog person. And I just, my schedule has been completely insane. So yay, yeah. So let me
I may have to have Joy take a walk up there for you or something.
yes, I'm leaving at, you know what? I could probably get off this or she wants to walk over. I'm participating in the MSU vaccination clinic this afternoon, so I'm leaving here shortly to go do that. So, but yeah, so okay. Oh, okay. I see somebody responded back to my question about conflicts. What are some of the most popular conflicts? And okay, I guess some other things. Oh, Kelly, Gunner's in the office today. Love that. Yes, being comfortable with silence is always a struggle for me. Been there. Yes. I mean, again, I've honed these skills over 25 years. I mean, let's face it, you can read something in a book, but until you actually have to do it, I mean, I've shared some of my previous life horror stories with Cara, and I've got a couple more to share with her. I keep on going, oh, I got to tell you about this time when, we all remember our first time we had to let somebody go. Again, you can read it in a book, and these are skills that just get developed over time, and hopefully, if you're not in HR, you will have very few of these issues, but always remember, your HR professionals, they're the ones that are trained, they've handled these issues, they know how to deal with them. That's what we're here for. So always reach out to your HR people, but we're here for support. We're here for guidance. I don't want anybody ever feeling like they're left out to dry or they're on their own, because they're not. That's what we're here for. And this is what we do. Let's see here. So yeah, getting comfortable with silence, just practice it. Maybe practice it at home with your spouse or something, your kids, and yeah, I'm always learning. Are you talking about me? Just kidding. Oh, that's funny. See, everybody thinks it's just me. It's just me. No, it's not. No, it's not. And even in HR, we struggle too. We're not the gods. We're not perfect. I mean, I'm still working on different skills and such. But nobody's perfect. Okay. So we always learn something new all the time. I've had great mentors throughout my careers. I'm 50 years old, and I still have a mentor currently that I consult for guidance, that I admire and respect them 100%, well, beyond 100%. And they provide very useful guidance for me. There are times when I'm going, am I crazy here? Have I like totally missed the boat on this one or some, and so having those great mentors is so key. I am still friends to this day, and I'm going to get to Washington, D.C. to visit them this year with my very first supervisor that I ever had in HR. And she's a wonderful person, and just love her to death. And so I still keep those relationships. I'm still friends with one of my HR professors from college, so having those connections and those great mentorships, and reaching out to other HR professionals, if you have a local HR group, having those connections, just to be able to reach out to another HR professional and say, okay, I have this weird situation. Have you ever had to deal with anything like this? You know, again, just realizing you're not in this alone by all means. And we're just trying to make the workplace a good place for everybody to come to work and do their job, right? I mean, at the end of the day. So, okay, you are the oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Okay, well, I think I've
Kelli,
gotten through the chat. Yeah.
Would you share your process for working with supervisors? For example, it feels like some supervisors just want to handle everything on their own without really involving HR, and some supervisors just say, here, take care of this. I don't even want to be in the room. Like, will you quickly walk through, like, do you try to stay super consistent about that process?
Yes, yes, definitely. And at no time would I ever allow the supervisor to be excused from the room. No, 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 no. We work closely with our supervisors here. And the great thing is they know, most of them, let's put it that way, when HR needs to get involved. Let's face it, there are some of those everyday scenarios that they can handle on their own. There are times when they do come to me and well, I've been handling this on my own and and it's not working, and here we are now, or and that's fine. You know, they've done all the verbals and what have you. You know, those situations that don't need to get HR involved. But we work with training our managers that they can get to the point where, if need be, they can deliver that coaching statement by themselves. So like for those managers, supervisors who are first-time managers, we provide training, which I'm sure Cara went over earlier, and supervisor manager training. And we're still working on that and developing that and doing more of that. And so if it's a situation where a supervisor, this is their first time having to deal with that situation, you know, I'll talk with them and say, would you like me to handle this first one so you can see how I handle it? Of course, they're present, mind you. And I just ask them that. Some of them will be, oh, you know, no, I've done it a million times, I'm fine. But then there are some who haven't. They're younger, and this is, you know, their first professional managerial supervisory position, and they're shaken like a leaf, like, oh gosh, no, I don't know how to do this. I've never done this. And so ultimately, we want to provide them that experience and knowledge of how to handle those situations on their own. Now, HR, all formal, like written counseling statements, they have to come to me before they're administered to the employees, because I'm looking them over again to make sure that there's facts in there, that they're very clear, concise, what the wording needs to be, what the policy violation is. And so they all come to me and I look them over and rework and what have you. But it's always a collaborative process with the supervisor. Now, when we get down to those final warnings, then I'm definitely involved in the final. And then, of course, if there has to be a termination. So we have great managers and supervisors here, wonderful, and so very, very blessed here. It always makes our job so much easier if you work someplace where you had great supervisors and managers versus bad ones. So again, it's a collaborative process, and you know, word gets around if you have a good HR person or department that works with you, that, hey, I need to get HR involved. Or I'll get those calls where here's what I got, yada, 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 yada. How should I handle? What would you suggest? Does HR need to get involved at this point? So on and so forth. So a lot of times we're maybe a sounding piece, or we're providing that information. No, at this time, you know, let's just do a verbal, document it, and, you know, we'll go from there and see what happens. So, you know, it's a step-by-step process, and every situation is individualized and different, just like every person is. So in HR, you learn to never, ever, ever say you've seen it all, because you've never seen it all. Because it's almost like karma or Mother Nature is taking that as a challenge. Oh, really? Okay, here we go. Try this on for size. So you've never seen it all, ever. Great question. Did I answer what you were looking for? That was
Yes,
Catherine.
thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Anybody else?
Okay, thank you, Kaylin.
Thank you.
Oh, let's see here. Okay, my screen is really light, so I'm trying to find that little next slide button to make sure. So I think that was really great. I hope that you enjoyed so far what Cara and Kelli had to share. Cara is one of my team member who is just really has a natural talent, what I would call natural talent for professional development. She's at any time she would say, that sounds great, let's do it, you know. And of course, Kelli, as you have heard, has many years of experience in HR, and she truly is a pro. And in listening to her today, I'm thinking of a situation that happened yesterday, and I'm definitely going to tap her strength by approaching her and asking her, you know, how to resolve a situation that I'm thinking of. So I appreciate both of these team members so much. And so as Kelly was talking about earlier, when she approached, when Dr. Higdon said to approach me about, you know, this workshop, originally it was going to be our in-person workshop, right? So we were kind of excited about, you know, coming up to Jeff City and getting a hotel, and, you know, for all of us to be able to see each other. And then this COVID happened, and the idea of presenting something virtual online, it was like totally intimidating to me. And but then when she said Dr. Higdon, and this is what, you know, he thought that we could do, and of course you have to step up, right? Even if you're even if you're nervous and unsure. So anyway, so as I was thinking about, you know, what topic could I present? And so in my position, I felt like leadership is something that I'm thinking about a lot. And others have, you know, talked to me about, hey, we would like some professional development about leadership. So it was something that I was thinking about in my queue. But more than that, I felt like I could share something from my personal perspective of what how I think about leadership. And, you know, sometimes leadership can be kind of vague, abstract. You know, what is it? What makes a leadership good? And we recognize it when we come across a good leadership. You know, we recognize it, but then and also at the same time, when we come across a leadership that's not so good, you know, we can tell. So I was thinking about that in terms of, you know, related to how I was thinking about this whole process. And so before I even begin, as a disclaimer, I speak with you today, not as someone who has achieved this, but as someone who is constantly learning and striving to achieve leadership in my leadership that has meaning and purpose and values in my personal life, as well as in working with my team and in leading HR at OTC. And certainly, you know, I don't always feel like I'm succeeding. At times I feel like I fail, but, you know, you learn and you press through that, and in order to grow. So with that, what is leadership? Oh, well, here's my objectives first. First, I thought we'd talk about nuances between leadership and what I call principal leadership. And there are some core leadership traits that I think is foundational, and principal leaders that, you know, we're going to look at some examples of principal leaders that we can learn from. And I'll share some internal leadership survey that I've done here with our top leaders and some insight that I've gained from that. We spend a few minutes talking about leadership challenge for 21st century. And there's at the end, this leadership assessment, online leadership assessment that I found that I thought might be fun. If we have time, we could, take 5 minutes, do the assessment, and it gives you the total, your score, and kind of interpretation of those scores. So I would put that web address in the chat box a little later, and then we can do that. And then I'll conclude with some final thoughts. So to define the leadership, then I think this is more of a conventional definition. It is art of motivating a group of people to act toward achieving a common goal. Leaders are the person in the group that possesses the combination of their personality and leadership skills to make others want to follow their direction. And so effective leadership is based upon ideas that are communicated to others in a way that engages them to act. The leader is the inspiration and the director of the action. So if this is the standard definition of the leadership, then I think we can think of a lot of people that in history or in our thoughts who would be considered great leaders. But then those are not the people that we would emulate and want to follow. People like Hitler, Jim Jones, a famous cult leader from the 70s who led nearly 1,000 people to commit suicide. And person like Stalin. Okay, these were all great leaders. They had people follow them for their cause, and people, they were charismatic and engaging, but yet I think we're hungry for a different type of leadership. We're not just talking about somebody who can lead, but we're talking about leadership that has values and inspiration. And so thus I call it principled leadership. So, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting to move the slides at the same time. The principled leadership is then defined as it is the development and practice of promoting the values and human considerations of leading people. This requires understanding of the fact that businesses and organizations are formed for the purposes of advancing the state of humanity. In short, principled leadership is the embodiment of the desire to make the world a better place for the human beings who we have relationships with. And certainly, I think this is the desire that we have as HR leaders. We want to make our workplace a better for our employees and those we have relationships with, for our customers, and especially in the higher ed situation, our students. Principal leaders are then defined as those who articulate their values, make decisions guided by their values, and consistently live their values in a transparent manner, all the while clearly adhering to the ethical codes and standards of their environment. This was said by Sarah Mangia, the director of the Leadership Initiative at Ohio University College of Business. Okay, we have heard this many times. Leaders are born, are leaders are born, or are they made? And we know that they're both. And so some of the innate traits that we have seen in naturally born leaders, they're good communicators, they're very outgoing, relate to others well, they're confident, they have that can-do attitude. And some people are just naturally not afraid to take risks. They're courageous. And then they're visionaries, they have ideas. But then these same traits can be learned. Communication skills can be learned, interpersonal skills can be learned. And a lot of times our experience and knowledge build confidence in us. And we can learn to take risks like I'm doing today and develop forward thinking. So we know that they're a combination of both. So that gives us, I think, hope and optimism for those of us who feel like we don't have those lot of innate traits, but at the same time, we can learn to lead well. And most of us, I think, are in those boats. When we some of the core leadership traits that we see here are, I think, foundational for good leadership. And I'm gonna just kind of go over, and many of you probably are already familiar with this. And I think Kelli have kind of talked about clarity earlier in her presentation, but clarity in our values and vision and direction on what we want to accomplish. Decisiveness. Once their mind is made up, they don't hesitate to commit. And that's something that, excuse me, something that is a common trait. Courage, being bold to take risks and persistent to accomplish their vision. And passion, I think, is another characteristics that we see in leaders that are effective and successful. Resilient, use failure and obstacle as a springboard to learn and grow. They do not give up. And I think we're going to see that in just a little bit in a leader that I'm going to talk about as an example. And humility, ability to admit that when they're wrong and take criticism as an opportunity to grow. So let's look at who I think demonstrates some of these leadership in our modern world. I have selected Malala, and I am not even going to attempt to pronounce her last name. And I tried to look on internet to see if there's some phonics that would show me, but I was not able to find it. But she is a young lady who was born in Pakistan. And I'm sure you have seen her in the news. As a child, she became an advocate for girls' education. And as the Taliban in her country tried to gain control and prohibit girls from being able to go to school. And they have destroyed many schools in her country. And she started blogging for BBC when she was just 11 years old. And she tried to use the fake name to do it, but she was revealed later. But she was challenging Taliban's restriction on letting the girls go to school. She had such a hunger to learn. Her brothers were able to go to school, but she was not able to. So she started doing this and promoting the idea. But she received a death threat for speaking out about education for girls and other injustices. And her family, they took this threat seriously, but they didn't actually think that anyone would harm a child. But on October 2012, Taliban attacked the bus Malala was riding with some friends from school, and they point blank shot her, wounding her and two of her friends. The bullet hit the left side of her head, traveled down to her neck, paralyzing left side of her face. The gunman asked for her by name when they attacked, and she was only 15 years old. Her injuries were critical, and eventually she was transferred to hospital in England. She went through multiple surgeries to including repair of facial nerve to fix the paralyzed left side of her face, but suffered no major brain damage. The shooting resulted in massive outpouring of support for Malala from Pakistani government and around the world. And, her courage was, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Catalyst, yes. Catalyst for bringing the world's support for her cause. But she paid the price of getting a death threat and getting shot. But she was okay. She recovered, and only 9 months later, she gave a speech to United Nations highlighting her focus on education and women's rights. Death threat against Malala is still standing, so she is not able to live in her country permanently. But she's continuing to fight for the cause for educational opportunities for girls and human rights. At age 17, Malala became the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize. She said in one of her speeches that the terrorists thought they would change our aims and stop our ambitions, but nothing changed in my life except this. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage were born. And so her courage is just amazing to me and very inspiring. Nelson Mandela is another leader that you probably are familiar with. I think his leadership showed the resilience that we, many of us can emulate. Mandela was, he was born in South Africa during the time of apartheid. That is a segregation policies that South Africa had in place against non-white citizens, segregating and oppressing non-white citizens of Africa. Mandela spent 27 years in prison for his involvement in the anti-apartheid movement. This apartheid movement basically where non-white South Africans, who were the majority of the population, but they were forced to live in separate areas, use separate public facilities, and have a limited contact with white Africans. The government banned the marriages between white and people of other races and prohibited sexual relations between Black and white South Africans. They also had a land act passed that 80%, more than 80% of the country's land was set aside for white minority, and they passed laws required where non-white citizens had to carry documents authorizing them and their presence in a restricted area. So apartheid was an ugly and oppressive legislation that mirrored how Blacks were treated in South of America before the Civil Rights Movement. Mandela fought against apartheid and paid the price by spending a big part of his adult years in prison. During the time he was in prison, though, he continued to speak out against apartheid, and as his reputation grew, the world's attention was on South Africa's apartheid, and pressure was on for the government to release Mandela. Finally, in early 1990, when a new president, F.W. de Klerk, came into the power, he released Mandela. And jointly, they were awarded Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts of dismantling the country's apartheid system. They even won the Nobel Prize for that. A new constitution took effect in 1994, and later that year, Mandela was elected South Africa's first Black president. He was in office from 1994 to 1999, proving his resilience paid off finally. Mandela died in December of 2013 at the age of 95. The next two leaders that I wanted to kind of talk about is Chuck Feeney, and some of you may have heard about him. He had a passion for philanthropy. He was known as the billionaire who wanted to die broke. He's the co-founder of airport retailer Duty-Free Shoppers, who became very successful in his business by becoming a billionaire. He was quoted as saying, "I see little reason to delay giving when so much good can be achieved through supporting worthwhile supporting worthwhile causes. Besides, it's a lot more fun to give while you're alive than give when you're dead. So he pioneered the idea of giving while living. And since you can't take it with you, why not give it all away? Have control over where it goes and see the results with your own eyes. So that was his passion. He carried that passion through. So last year, September 14, 2020, he finally completed in giving away all of his fortunes. They were in excess of 8 billion that I saw the numbers. Other than setting aside 2 million for he and his wife's retirement, he have given it all of it away. And he closed his foundation that was in work to do his philanthropy work for the last 40 years. And along the way, he has inspired other billionaires like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates to follow his examples by signing a pledge of giving away 99% of their fortune. And granted, 1% of their fortune is still way more than probably any of us have, but still the idea that you could have this work of helping others and helping the world, and that was very inspiring. Now, the next gentleman, I'm not sure if you are familiar with who he is. Do any of you know who he is? If you know, just speak up and that'll be fine. Okay. Then I'm excited to share with you who this person is. Ingvar Kamprad. This gentleman was known for his humility, but he is none other than the founder of IKEA. The IKEA is an abbreviation for his first and last name, and the town from where he came as a boy. And I am not going to be able to pronounce the town's name, but it has E and A at the end. So that's where the IKEA came from. And Kamprad began his entrepreneur career at the tender age of 5 by selling matches. By age 10, he was selling assortment of items all over his neighborhood on his bicycle. At 17, this was in 1943, Kamprad's father rewarded him with a small sum of money for doing well in school, despite being dyslexic. With that, he founded a business named IKEA. He didn't start the furniture business until 1948, but his idea of providing affordable, stylish, and modernist furniture took off, and rest is basically history. Today, there are 300 IKEA stores around the world in 38 countries, including US. All this time, Kamprad has never borrowed money or issued stock. So IKEA is still a private company. He was known for his frugality and living in simplicity. When he traveled, he was known to stay in modest hotels instead of a luxurious hotel, which he could definitely afford. He flew economy class and drove 1993 Volvo, while the Forbes magazine estimated his net worth to be at 23 billion. He never veered too far from where he came from and died in his sleep at his home in Sweden at age 91. So these are some, I think, very inspirational leaders that demonstrate those leadership traits. But there's a 7th trait that I would like to propose, and that is gratitude. This first statement is so true. Not one of us achieve success, do so without help of others. The wise and confident acknowledge this help with gratitude. It was said by Alfred Whitehead. There are some couple other quotes that I think describe gratitude that is essential for living a not only a happy and joyous life, but I think it's a fundamental in how we approach leadership. Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. Gratitude helps you grow and expand. Gratitude brings joy and laughter in your life and into the lives of those around you. But here's the favorite one that I keep it in my office as a reminder. Gratitude is the ability to experience life as a gift. It liberates us from the prison of self-preoccupation. And I think as a reminder to me every day that it's not so much about me, but it's about others around me, and that life that I have is a gift. And so I would say that 7th trait is something that is essential part of a leadership. How are we doing on time? Okay. Well, shortly after I started, I took a leadership survey with some of the top leaders at OTC. And I asked them 2 questions. What leadership qualities have impacted you more from other leaders you've observed or from those who have mentored you, and why? And second question was, what leadership qualities are most important to you and thus you seek to employ with your direct reports? And so here were some answers that I got. To question 1 about what leadership qualities that they observed in others that they admire, or someone who have mentored them. And they all had pretty standard answers, and most of us would agree that these are some great characteristics. Transparency, trust, servant leader, humility, honesty and integrity, loyalty, and they need to be approachable, definitely have vision and forward thinking, commitment and responsibility, empowerment, innovative, and non-conventional. These were the terms that they have given me as the answers that they valued. But then the answers to next question, they gave me these answers. And that question was, what leadership qualities are most important to you, and so you seek to employ with your direct reports? And so they gave me the answers that were in phrases, and it seemed like it's I thought, I wonder why they gave me this kind of answers, whereas first question it was more just a short terms. But they gave me answers like value team and individual contributions, provide guidance and support, but not micromanage, lead from whatever level is needed. No job is too big or small. Allow latitude to fail and learn from mistakes. Project positive attitude. Provide honest feedback, recognize job well done, set clear expectations, listen and consider all the points of view, but make the hard decisions when needed. Follow through your words and work just as hard as those who report to you. Ability to laugh at oneself and value human connection. And I thought about this. These answers were so different than the first one. The first answers were more abstract, kind of standard answers, but these answers were more thoughtful and intentional. So the results of my thinking about these answers was that when you're thinking about impact of leadership in relating to your direct reports, I think there is that vested relationship, and leaders are way more, I think, thinking about how best to enhance those relationships that they have and be supportive and provide guidance. So I thought that was very interesting and very telling of how our leaders here at OTC thought about in their relating to their direct reports. Our society values have been blurring and shifting. There has been concerns about future relationships, future leadership with millennials and younger generations. There is a sense of entitlement sometimes, and that ends justify the means, etc. So, you know, some of those in the leadership development are concerned. And these were some of the challenges that Don Elm, professor at the Ethics and Business Law at University of St. Thomas Opus Business College, have said that we are facing in the 21st century. Lack of human relationships in our interactions due to technology. Without the human interactions, we begin to distance ourselves from what is truly meaningful and ethical in the world. And I think there is some truth to that. I think there is more of, as long as the ends justify then whatever means that we need to accomplish, that is okay. And I think as a result of that, we are facing some huge challenges in our world with environment and in other areas. Lack of our ability to face and feel uncomfortable with situations and actions in lives, become complacent and unwilling to rock our own world to address serious issues with our society. And here, let me move this around so I can see. So I think some of these are challenges that I think even in our own institutions are thinking about, you know, as we think about succession planning and planning for the future of bringing up those leaders that could take over as the older leadership may be retiring and leaving. I think that these are some challenges that we can think about and tackle in our leadership development with our young and up and coming leaders. And so far though, I have been very, what could I say? I have been really I have discovered that I do not have as many concerns because I have seen some really talented young leaders that are in our organization that are doing great things and leading and up and coming, that I feel very optimistic about it. I don't feel as maybe concerned as some of these others that are in leadership development, but personally, I have seen some great young leaders that are coming up and feel wonderful optimism about the future leadership. Okay, I think we'll have a little bit of time to do this. Let me put this web address in the chat box. And if you have a browser that you could open up and then we could have a little fun of doing a leadership self-assessment. Let me see if I could stop share and bring up the website as well. Okay, let's see. Oh no, that's not it. Let me go back. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Technology challenge I'm having.
I
Are
can see
you
your
able to see
screen,
this?
so I see everything. You look fine. If you just scroll down, the quiz is down there.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, yeah, I couldn't find the menu bar. Okay, so basically here are the questions. So if you want to take time to kind of answer these questions and come down here and calculate my total, it will give you the scores. And then it will give you score interpretation and the areas that the website think that that highlight your strong areas and areas that you might like to develop. So I thought this is kind of fun activity that we could do. And we certainly have time to do it if you would like to do that. Is everyone able to open up the browser to do it? Okay, I'm seeing some nodding heads. I give everyone a few more minutes. Would anyone like to share the result of their, I'm sure all of you will score very high. I thought it's kind of fun exercise.
What's considered high?
High?
Tell me the answer before I tell you my score.
Okay, I think 53 to 90. Score of 53 to 90. It says, excellent, you're on your way to becoming a good leader.
I was in the 60s.
That was fun.
Great. All right, I'm going to, let's see, stop sharing and go back to my PowerPoint. And so, oh, here we go. So I know as I wrap things up, Marlene Chisholm is somebody that I admire. You know, Kelly was talking about how that she have mentors and that she rely on. And I just came across Marlene only about a year ago. And she is a consultant and an international speaker and author, but she wrote a couple of really good, great books about workplace. It's called No Drama Leadership. And also, I think her recent, her first book was Stop Workplace Drama. Anyway, but she's got this great free, she's not cheap if you try to get her to come in and speak at an event, but she has this website where she contributes articles and I have it down at the bottom here. It's www.smartbrief.com. It's where like a lot of different people contribute articles, and it's a free website. If you go to this website right here, she would have different tips and articles about leadership and workplace. And she always has this really great statements that she makes that are just kind of puts things on just right to the point for workplace. And one of the statements that she makes is that people do what they do because it works. It is an allowed behavior, and it is a leadership problem. Basically, you are having issues at work, and even like what situation that Kelli talked about, like someone who is continuing to be late or absent. And if it works for the employee, they're going to continue to do it. And so, you essentially have allowed it to go on. So basically, it is a leadership issue. And another great one that she talks about is approach people and conversation with right intention. If you have an intention to want to really win that person and resolve a right, healthy resolution, then you're going to get that response. But if you're approaching it with just to put a blame or accusatory or whatever the intention is, then it's not going to go well. And so I just wanted to put this little tip out there. I am not getting any kind of commission from her. It's just somebody that I have gleaned some truth about leadership and how to approach it, that I felt like it was a good tip that I wanted to share with you. So other than that, I am finished with my presentation. So if any of you have any questions or thoughts and you want to ask, and I'm open. Great. I see some scores that you put on the chat. That's great.
Yeah, that was fun. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I'll start to assign people to breakout rooms. I did it on the back end, but for some reason it's not showing up. Oh, all participants have been invited to join. Oh, maybe Bobby took care of it for me.